Merry Fixmas, if that isn't too laboured a pun for you. I'm here with Dr. Bastani himself.
How you doing, Ash?
The communist Nostradamus.
Bastani-damus. I'm very sick, so if Ash shows me up, even more than usual, my apologies.
It's not just because of my innate superiority.
It's that as well.
It's because I have an unfair advantage.
Yeah, it's that as well, but...
But I'm here with the Lean Mean pasta rolling machine to do our end of year roundup as we talk all things political and banterous, go through our top comrades, our biggest flops, and maybe one or two predictions for 2018.
You know, this has been a great year for us as an organisation. I think also individually it's been a really wonderful year. Lots of personal growth, development.
Yeah.
But I know you emotionally have grown a lot as well.
Yeah.
And there's been a special somebody in your life. I know maybe the audience don't know about this, but when did you know?
Are you talking about that special man in my life?
Yeah, when did you know?
I mean, you don't just there's not just one moment of knowing with a guy. You know, we've all been hurt before and disappointed and let down. And then you start seeing him become more confident. You see how other people relate to him and you're like, okay, I want me a bit of that.
So when did it, when was it confirmed? When did you know?
Oh, when you see a man naked, there is no going back.
Wait. I'm talking about the general election. I thought we were talking about Jeremy Corbyn. What are you talking about?
The general election and politics in the UK as well?
Right, okay, well, I don't believe you. Did you kind of early doors, when did you kind of assess that?
I, from the start, thought that Corbyn was going to do really well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 100%.
100%?
100%.
Well, okay, we're going to pull up Ash's Facebook status now from the day that the snap election was called. What does that say, Ash? Labour
are so fucked.
So, I'll review the question. I'll ask you again. That was obviously your initial analysis. Ash Sarkar, one of the most intelligent people I know, and that was her initial analysis. When did you actually, honestly, review that and say, something interesting's happening?
I was completely lost in the sauce. So I woke up like the rest of you guys with a bit of a headache because it had been my birthday the day before. Felt hungover and despondent, then saw Theresa May outside of Downing Street announcing the snap election, and I felt terrible. And for lots of people, I know that was the case. And then as the campaign moved on, they saw how badly Theresa May was doing in terms of even basic media appearances, how well Jeremy Corbyn was doing out in the streets in terms of connecting with people, and their hope picked up. I'm going to be honest with you. The exit polls hit me like a ton of bricks.
Right.
I was out here looking like Stephen Kinnock, completely.
Really?
Yeah, completely surprised. I'm not going to, I wish I could be one of those people that says, I was an early adopter, but I wasn't.
So for me, the big turning moment was, I think, the launch of the manifesto, which we know was sort of preemptively leaked. Who by is the big question. I mean, I've been told it was Tom Watson, but then if it was my job to work around Corbyn, I would lie to me and say it was Tom Watson. But I believe it was Tom Watson, and I believe it backfired. But then there was the launch at there was a university, I think it was somewhere in the Midlands or in Hull or somewhere like that. And it looked super pro, looked like you had a team around Jeremy Corbyn, full of ideas, buzzing, and there was actually going to be a distinct political off between the two parties. And I think that's when people clicked and they went, okay, well, we haven't had that for a couple of decades. What does that really mean in the context of Brexit, declining living standards and so on? And we found out, actually, the left did far better than many predicted.
I mean, there were some little hints about this. Even when Corbyn was getting roundly slated in the press, there were a couple of polls here and there asking people to respond to policies without a party or a candidate attached to them. And Corbyn's policies consistently polled better. So in hindsight, it's not that surprising that the manifesto did so well. It also was substantive. It gave people something to engage with. I think that's really been something that's missing. And I think the flip side to how strong Labour's manifesto was just how shonky the Tory manifesto was, in particular dementia tax.
Yeah, that was the sort of totemic policy at the moment, wasn't it? We have a video of the dementia tax?
We do. We have a video of Theresa May doing that.
Can you answer yes or no to this question? Will anything else in the manifesto change between now and June the 8th?
Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. We are offering a long-term solution for the sustainability of social care for the future.
I mean, just watching that even now, I'm astonished. She looks rattled.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever came up with that phrase dementia tax, that was a stroke of genius. But really, the social care proposals in that manifesto were indefensible. You saw Theresa May looking like a startled pigeon, right? Or like a cat that someone's trying to force into a
But that's because
bath.
she'd never had to... People were saying, oh, Jeremy Corbyn's not electable, right? And I said, well, OK, we can debate that. But Theresa May's not electable. She's never had to fight for a thing. She was given a safe seat. She was given the Home Secretary. She was given the party leadership. She didn't really pick a side in Brexit. So what you saw in that video was somebody who, for the first time in their life, was having to lead a political party or movement and campaign, and she wasn't having everything go her way, and she was pretty bad.
She sounded like a substitute teacher who's losing control of her class.
Right.
Nothing's changed. And you compare that performance to her outside of Downing Street.
Yeah.
And you realise that you get her out of that rarefied, stage-managed air. You know, she's just like a collapsing bubble or something.
Yeah.
Whereas you put Jeremy Corbyn in a situation which is organic, which is responsive, which is just him and a crowd. We've got some footage of him at the football stadium. Was it a football stadium?
It was Tranmere Rovers Stadium. It was
yes,
Libertines
it was
concert,
Tranmere
right?
Rovers Stadium. And you've got this wave of adulation. Can we get that up?
And remember, this election is about you, about what we can achieve together. Thank you very much.
I mean, that's chalk and cheese, right?
Yeah.
That's chalk and cheese between a Prime Minister who could barely go around talking to people on the streets and somebody who was just off the cuff talking to people in a football stadium, tens of thousands of people start shouting his name.
I mean, here's a phrase that you've used quite a lot when describing Jeremy Corbyn in particular this year. You've said, this man looks prime ministerial. Do you think that that looks like a prime ministerial performance, or is that indicative of a shift in politics towards something different, towards something a bit more authentic, organic, warm, human? Not prime ministerial in any traditional sense.
You know, I remember, people will forget this now, and we haven't got video of this. Before 1997, I was a kid, but I remember watching Kevin Keegan and Tony Blair do head tennis. And for me, as like a regular working class kid or whatever, oh, it's a normal human being that can play head tennis. And he was actually quite good, right? So I don't think that's anything new, but the thing is with Jeremy Corbyn, that isn't just like a singular moment and you can point to it. That was literally every day on the campaign. There were those moments all of the time. I mean, a great example was where he held up that Pringle aloft outside the debate, you know? And the way that was mediatised, the way that feeds into social media, and it's constantly rechanneling itself back into a 24-hour media cycle, very, very powerful. And I think that, in a sense, bolsters the kind of authenticity that Jeremy Corbyn is so full of.
I mean, I think that moment at the Tranmere Rovers Stadium really sums something up for me, which is a transformation of Labour and how it's perceived, which is from something which was focus grouped to death, triangulated to have the soul ripped out of it, to something that was capable of something kind of responsive. And you're right, it's mediatised, it's as much spectacle as anything else, but I feel that there's a heart to it. But moving on to our next section.
Boris, remember, I asked him this last time.
Boris, I'm sorry to say
I'm so sorry. Go on.
Don't be a pillar.
Come on.
But Boris,
remember, I asked him this last time.
Boris, I'm sorry to say
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
You know.
it's kind of true. Well, other than Wenger's Arsenal is on its way out.
But I mean, you know, that weird phrasing where it's like Corbyn's Labour. Not just the meteoric rise of Corbyn's Labour, but the absolute... I mean, it's like watching that scene in Four Lions of like a clown going across like a minefield. It's like, you know, just the Conservative Party lurching from one crisis to another.
Tory meltdown. Hey, look, I said this repeatedly ahead of the election. I said the Tories have only won one majority since 92. They obviously won a majority in 1992. They proceeded to not win another majority until 2015. And that was because of very unique circumstances around Scotland. So I said the idea, all of a sudden, in the face of 30 years of history, they're going to get this majority of 100 it's unlikely if you're a social scientist. And I'm sorry to be empirical about these things. And sadly, most of the mainstream media doesn't like to be particularly empirical. But it always looked unlikely. And what we're seeing now with the Conservative Party's collapse is a return to the party of, quite frankly, a very odd, bizarre bunch of people. We had that with Ian Duncan Smith and William Hague in the early noughties, and that's exactly what they look like today.
So let's take a closer look at the so-called natural party of government and look at one of its top leadership contenders, or at least once upon a time.
Who are we starting with?
One of their top leadership contenders. Let's go for our peroxide buffoon.
Yeah.
Have I got news for you? Killing it in the media, apparently, Boris Johnson.
Boris Johnson. So he was our 5th biggest flop of the year.
5th biggest.
Boris.
Remember, I asked him this last time.
Boris, I'm sorry to say
Yes. I'm so sorry. Go on.
Don't be a
Come
pillock.
on.
But Boris,
He lost his
But
fucking mind.
it wasn't just that. There was that, and then there was with Ian Lavery. He was like squaring up to him, and then there was like a round two. It was like Fraser and Muhammad Ali. There was like a round two with Andrew Gwynn.
So what do you think was going on, right? Once upon a time, Boris Johnson picked as the next Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Brexit was supposed to be his time to shine.
Yeah.
Then, as Theresa May looked weaker by the day,
Yeah.
he was supposed to have this kind of tremendous rise to the top.
Yeah.
What happened to him during the election campaign?
He's a loser. He's a loser. He's 53, so he's older than David Cameron. Cameron's already been the Prime Minister and lost and gone. Boris was older than him at Eton, at Oxford, so the presumption would have been that he would be ahead of him. And I think it's probably dawning on Boris now that his time is never going to come. He will always be a joke. And, you know, this is somebody who's studied the rhetoric of Winston Churchill, wrote a book about him, who's been London mayor. In his mind, he would have been not just a Prime Minister, but a great Prime Minister. And it's not going to happen because, yeah, he's a joke. You know, he's not got what it takes, either as a character or, I think, intellectually, frankly.
Well, our next biggest Tory flop of the year, I think, has got to be Priti Patel. Heralded as the modern, fresh face of conservatism, right?
She's for hanging, right? I mean, that's pretty modern. She wants to bring back hanging. That's pretty modern.
I mean, honestly, I'm not claiming
Innovative
her.
solution.
I'm not claiming her as one of my own. All right, we're a diaspora of like 1 billion people. So
But what was the highlight for Priti was this...
So this has got to be a flight tracker, right?
This is the app that crashes every transfer deadline day because like Liverpool fans are watching all the planes coming from like Monaco to Liverpool and...
I mean, the Minister for Skyscanner herself, after having lied to both her bosses and the media about the nature of her trip to Israel, right? Initially, just a family holiday, because who doesn't love going to the occupied West Bank on holiday? Turns out she was setting up meetings, trying to direct British funding to go towards, the Golden Heights, was it?
Bizarre.
Absolutely bizarre behaviour. So the old guard wiped out in 2017. The new guard been roundly discredited.
Yeah.
They're incompetent. They're inadequate. They have less fire in their belly than, you know, Louis van Gaal's last days at Man United. They look like they're on their last legs. So who have we got left in the Tory party? Who looks strong?
We've got David Davis. Let's go to, there was the drunk meet. This is quite recent, right? He appeared to be drunk while talking to a select committee. Have we not got that?
We don't have that video. However,
that was so good.
I think we've got, let's just remind our viewers of some of the more spectacular images from that meeting in which he admitted to not having done a single impact assessment on the effect of Brexit on the economy. There was some incredible shots of him literally slumped with his head in his hands on the desk.
Apparently he goes into work every day pissed.
Are we going to get sued for this?
Well, I said apparently. I mean, I might be wrong. So we got David Davis next.
He did not look like he was having a good day. He then claimed to be sick. Did he not?
Well, I'm sick. I mean, it can happen.
I was feeling unwell that day. Dude looked like he was sweating pure Cuervo.
I mean, he just drinks non-stop by the looks of it, right?
But he was supposed to be a safe pair of hands, right?
I mean, what does that mean anymore in the Conservative Party? I mean, this is the man, as we're about to go to number 2 here on this big list of biggest Tory flops. This was the man who was going to resign over that ideological line that the modern Conservative Party simply will not transgress. That is the right to wank at work. Damien Green, of course, found with loads of porn on his computer in 2008. This is the guy who's overseeing Brexit, and he's saying, I will resign, rather, if Green goes.
But you know what's so interesting about this? And the reason why I think it's instructive to go from Boris to Priti to David Davis to Damien Green is that here we see old guard flopped it, new guard flopped it. We have new political crises, or relatively new political crises like Brexit, scuppering these whiskey-soused blancmanges that seem to populate the Conservative Party. We also have old beefs rearing their ugly head. This copper's been out to get Damien Green for, almost a decade now.
Cops do not forget.
They do not forget.
They hold grudges, okay?
And this is...
They hold grudges.
And this goes back to when the Tories were in opposition. And I think the allegation here is that Damien Green was behind some leaks, right?
Right,
From a Tory-leaning civil servant.
Yeah.
So, long-standing beef, threatening to scupper the Conservative Party.
And what's the biggest flop?
Here's something that none of us could have predicted.
No, this is phenomenal.
Theresa May.
Oversee the biggest expansion in training for doctors and nurses. And we... and we... shows what good the Chancellor's cough suite is. Will oversee the...
This country...
Agonising.
Britain...
Agonising.
Britain was the most powerful, arguably the most powerful country in the world until 1939, arguably. And you're reduced to... it's amazing. The Prime Minister, she was finishing a fucking sentence and we're going, yeah, good woman! I think, what the fuck is going on with this country? It's meant to be a serious power.
To be fair, Britain wasn't the most powerful nation on this earth until the 1930s because no one got a cough. Colonialism played...
No, exactly. They fucked over a bunch of countries, but in terms of manpower, human power, in terms of aggregate wealth, industrial power, yada, 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 and it's got to the point where... it's amazing. If you look at the rise and fall of great powers just over history, to go from that to, this is remarkable.
it was painful to watch. It was agonising to watch. And I think here we see this idea of, the Conservatives are just automatically that bit more statesman-like. They can hold it together. They can look like they know what they're talking about, even if they're out of ideas.
Cameron, perfect example, right?
The shine off the apple, the scenery literally falling apart.
Yeah.
Do you think that Theresa May is going to be remembered as one of the worst prime ministers this country's
Easily. I think the worst 3 PMs, the 20th and, let's say the long 20th century, Anthony Eden, Suez Crisis, then David Cameron, Brexit's on a par with that. And then I think Theresa May, it depends on how Brexit pans out. We might stay in the single market, the Tory party doesn't split, they don't lose massively to Jeremy Corbyn. Right now, that would look like a success. If she does that, she's not done too badly. At the moment, it looks like a complete failure.
Well, parliamentary politics is not the only game in town, no matter how much we might like to pretend that it is.
Or Michael Walker. It's all Michael Walker, bad influence.
I've fallen pretty in love with Jeremy Corbyn recently, I'm not going to lie. However, there is still such a thing as class struggle, and it is back, baby. We have our special class struggle correspondent, Callum Cant, who made a video for us earlier, and we're going to roll it for you on the 5 most important campaigns and struggles of 2017.
As 2017 draws to a close, you can be forgiven for thinking that the period of social movements is over. Everybody's in the Labour Party, nobody's on the streets, and it all seems quiet for the first time since 2010. So what's going on? Well, it's not like everybody's lives have got so much better. Our rent is still going up, our wages are still going down, the environment is still heating up, and the far right is still growing. So what are people taking to the streets over now? Well, in 2017, we saw a new wave of radical trade unionism and housing activism coming to the fore. These are the 5 struggles of 2017 that put the class in class struggle. Picture House. The Picture House dispute has seen everything from community pickets to trade union victimisation by the bosses. But the struggle has gone from one cinema, the Ritzy in Brixton, to many across the capital. There are now 6 involved in the strike, and it is the longest cinema strike in UK history. What the bosses, Cineworld, who hide behind the name Pitch House, are doing is refusing their workers the basic rights they deserve at work. So a living wage, paternity and maternity pay, trade union representation, amongst others, whilst at the same time paying their boss £2.5 million after bonuses, and just to really put the icing on the cake, giving him his own private toilet in Cineworld HQ. Now, this struggle has given a huge example to those in the private sector who are taking the fight against low wages and bad conditions. People like Muckstrike, Deliveroo, all these companies have taken inspiration from and developed alongside the Pitch House dispute. It really shows that workers in these kind of positions, in precarious jobs in the service sector, can have power, can organise and take on the bosses. 4. Keep the guard on the train. Keep the guard on the train began with a dispute with Southern Rail over the issue of driver-only operation. The RMT said that if driver-only operation was allowed, there would be negative consequences for the security of customers and workers would lose their jobs. It went from a single struggle in one company to now being across 5 companies across the UK and being the longest running strike in the RMT's history. Workers on Southern Rail have now taken 39 strike days alone by this December, and it's been going on for over a year. The organisation and action of railway workers has been one of the major reasons why the transport sector accounted for over half of all strike days in the private sector this year up to August 2017. 3. Acorn. Acorn began in 2014 as a local organisation based in Bristol, but 2017 was the year that the Renters Union broke out of local isolation and started forming branches across the country. From Bristol, it's now gone to Newcastle, Sheffield, Brighton and Manchester, and all of these new branches are winning as they go. In Bristol, the oldest branch won an £8.5 million victory as they prevented the council's attempt to remove council tax exemption from the poorest residents of the city. In Sheffield, over 100 people were mobilised to a demonstration to prevent an eviction, and in Brighton, rent strikers were recently helped to win a £64,000 compensation victory by the Acorn branch there. 2. Outsourced workers at the University of London. Outsourced workers in the capital have been organising for about 18 years, and this year, 2017, that slog paid off with a slew of victories. At SOAS, workers won the ability to be brought back in-house after facing an intense campaign of oppression by management, which included in 2009 the deportation of 9 workers. At LSE, after a series of disruptive strikes, workers won there and were brought back in-house on in-house conditions. And the IWGB are now leading a campaign at the University of London to bring outsourced cleaners and security staff there back in-house on the same conditions as in-house staff. Now, across London, other workers and cleaners are joining them. So you see the same thing at the ISS South London hospital workers, you see the same thing amongst underground cleaners. All of them are joining the fight and showing that migrant workers in the capital know how to fight and develop class power at the point of production. 1. Bifab. The Bifab plant in Fife, Scotland produces parts for wind farms. When the company teetered on the edge of bankruptcy and wages stopped being paid to workers, they organised to take over the plant, lock the bosses out and complete orders that they had outstanding. This put a huge amount of pressure on the Scottish Government and Bifab to come to an agreement to save the company, which they did in November, saving all 1,400 jobs. So that is it. Bifab, the workers' occupation there, wins the 2017 Top 5 Struggle competition. But what does this look like for the future? What are we looking at in 2018? Well, it's likely the labour movement's going to keep on kicking off. So there's a number of potentially big strikes coming up around pensions for UCU and the public sector pay cap for a large number of TUC unions. But as we know, it's quite unlikely they're going to lead the way. We should probably be looking at unions like UVW, IWGB to be leading the way with militant action on the ground. Alongside this, there's going to be a huge amount of pressure generated by the implementation of universal credit, which is going to mean that many people are under real serious pressure in terms of housing, their access to goods and services, and all kinds of, basic living that the Tories don't want them to do. So this is likely to produce some kind of struggle, some kind of organisation, which actually goes beyond the Labour Party. But alongside this, if the Labour Party do form a government in, hopefully, 2018, what does that mean for grassroots struggles? Well, at the current going, they need to be much stronger if that Labour Party is going to have a chance to implement what it really wants to implement. It's not going to be able to nationalise everything and get rid of the bankers and do all of that stuff if, on the ground, there's not very much class power. What we really need to see in 2018 is a regrowth in working class movements if we really want to see the chance of a proper working class government.
Brilliant stuff.
My guy, Callum Cant, need to get more of him on.
I'm into it. I'm
Yeah,
into
yeah.
it. So let us take a brief sojourn across the pond as we look at America. What the fuck?
First 12 months for Trump presidency, huh?
It's-
13 months in now, right? Well, no, I mean, he came in February, but he won in November, yeah.
Yeah, so we have survived, but the world has survived Trump presidency. Who knows how much longer that can go on for? But what a bizarre year. And I think one of the most bizarre things that we've seen this year is what it's like when a president's id is at the wheel on Twitter. Some of the most bizarre social media strategy, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
I've seen in my entire life. And this has gone from the clearly absurd stuff like Kofifi and whatever to some quite frightening signal boosting of otherwise very niche fascist and white supremacist fringe groups, really. For example, we had, just a little while ago, Donald Trump retweeting videos from Britain First, who today, because God is real and is smiling on us, the leaders of Britain First all got booted off Twitter.
They've also been charged, right?
For incitement in Belfast.
Yeah, so not a great week for Britain First. Anyway.
Not a great week for Britain First. I feel so terrible for them. So we have Trump signal boosting Britain First, sharing these disgusting videos which are intended to paint Muslims as uniquely barbarous, uniquely heinous, to whip up racial hatred. What else have we got?
There was
on Twitter?
Trump was trying to be. I mean, I kind of lost this one. It was in the summer. He was trying to basically be like Kim Jong Un's mate.
So yeah, this
What was this?
this one. Why would Kim Jong Un insult me by calling me old when I would never call him short and fat? Oh well, I try so hard to be his friend, and maybe someday that will happen. So this is one of his late night, 10 minutes to midnight, clearly tweeting on the toilet missives, and it's frankly bizarre.
Yeah.
There's this kind of sense that he's narrating something to himself, a story that only he can really understand.
What I love
Get a
is
grip
like
on.
the complete level of over-analysis with Trump. So he'll tweet something at like 3 a.m. and then you have these right-wing analysts on television, and they're quite smart people, not Ann Coulter, and they'll be saying, well, look, there's lots of shift workers in America. You might not be up at 3, but they're up at 3. There's tens of millions of Republican votes up at 3 in the morning. And you're like, can you fucking give me a break? Donald Trump went for a shit. He looked on his phone because he's a sloppy motherfucker, and he decided to tweet something about Kim Jong-un. Simple as that. But it's like red is this like, which makes sense because he's the president of the United States. But sometimes if something's stupid and fatuous and idiotic, that's all it is. There hasn't got to be a deeper meaning to it.
I mean, it's frankly absurd. It's weird to get so much insight into, the unconscious of a sitting president. Do you know what I mean? To really see what makes him tick. And I think we've seen his sense of presidential behaviour in his comments on the promise to rain down fire and fury on North Korea. I think we've got this on video.
This was amazing.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly, power, the likes of which this world has never seen before.
I mean, it's like he's playing the character of a president in a movie with Bruce Willis and Jeff Goldblum as the wisecracking advisor, and he's the guy who's got to hold it all together after the White House has just been eviscerated by aliens or something.
Well, he kind of believes that, right? Because he's always saying, I mean, it was in a story in the last couple of weeks, right, where he was saying that his approach with the presidency is for kind of each day or period of several days to be like an episode of a sitcom. And that was kind of like, oh, that was the Fire and Fury show, or that was the Kim Jong-un is like short and fat show. So it's kind of like quite, I think, intentional that we have these kind of discrete categories. Speaking of which,
we have the return of my favourite genre of cinema, the Wise Guy movie.
The Wise Guy movie, of course, over the summer, slow news month generally is August, but we had the rise of the mooch.
The rise and fall of the mooch.
Yeah. Antonio Scaramucci became, I believe, the head of communications for the White House. lost his job within 10 days. We're going to cut to a very funny glimpse of what that bizarre moment looked like.
What I don't like about Washington is people do not let you know how they feel. They're very nice to your face, and then they take a shiv or a machete and they stab it in your back. I don't like it. You know, Anthony, I'm a Wall Street guy, and I'm more of a front-stabbing person, and I'd rather tell people directly how I feel about them than this sort of nonsense.
It's funny, you know. It's a good story. It's funny. You're a funny guy. What do you mean? You mean the way I talk? What? It's just, you know, you're just funny. It's funny, you know, the way you tell the story and everything. Funny how?
The dude is literally Joe Pesci.
Well, actually, no, that wasn't Joe Pesci. That was Antonio Scaramucci. That was just that was a bit of iPhone footage from a private party. No, but he is. I mean, he is like a wise guy. Okay, so basically, look. Joe Pesci, 5'4", Antonio Scaramucci, about the same height. Both very angry people, very passionate people. There's something going on there, right? Again, I think it was based upon a TV character. It's like the kind of quick-talking wise guy.
I mean, the fact that Aaron is looking at me like this is this kind of implicit par because I'm 5'2" and notorious.
No, I mean, he literally could be like Pesci's best friend in a gangster movie.
I mean, it's really hard to even... There's no analysis that you can do of the mooch. It's all surface. I mean, you know, you think about the writing that kind of came out in the 1960s, and you think about, you know, the fact that in 2010, 2011, we were all reading things like Society of the Spectacle, and we never saw this coming.
No, I never thought that a White House press secretary would be like an extra from The Sopranos. No, I never believed that. Really. You know, I didn't think it'd be like, yo, bada bing, don't break my balls.
It's like, you know, I'm the kind of guy I'd stab him in the front. I wouldn't stab him in the back.
Oh, mashkamats. Are you stigats? What are you saying? Get the fuck out of here. I mean, I didn't think that was going to happen. Really? I mean, this is the most powerful country in the world.
Do you know what buddy movie I would watch the hell out of?
Go on.
Scaramucci, The Mooch, and Jess Phillips.
Oh my God.
Would you not watch that road trip movie?
It'd be fucking weird, right? I mean, they're both kind of strange people.
Yeah, I think it would work.
In quite unique ways.
I think it would work. And Hillary Clinton, what happened?
Is that the number one moment? Is it from across the pond?
This is more of how do we even make sense of the lack of self-reflection on the part of the Democrats. What happened? This absurd tome in which Hillary Clinton blames everyone apart from herself and her campaign strategist.
Do you mean she got tens of millions of dollars for this, I believe? She got a lot of money, right? And the day that it's released, she's saying, what's Bernie Sanders doing? Bernie Sanders was building a coalition to defend Obamacare. You are powering off literally everybody in the United States for your defeat, except yourself. Have a look in the mirror.
You know what I thought the key quote was from Hillary Clinton? And this is what demonstrates that the centre truly cannot hold. Neoliberalism is on the way out. Is that she looks at Bernie Sanders, who of course polls so well in the Rust Belt, and you know really has got like quite a lot of potential, and even you know appealing to some of those demographics that Obama was so effectively able to bring together and to coalesce. And she says, whenever I go up against him with my very sensible policy proposals, he just promises the world a pony.
Yeah.
And then I've got to be the bad guy who says, you can't have a pony.
Yeah.
And that sounds very pithy, and that sounds like, you know, I imagine that must be very frustrating for you, Hill. Until you realise that she's talking about things like healthcare in terms of adequately funded public services, in terms of people who are losing their jobs because of automation or outsourcing. She's talking about the minimum wage.
Bridges and roads that don't fall apart, hospitals that are safe and sanitised, people earning enough that they aren't starving whilst working a 50-hour week. Ponies!
A pony.
A pony!
A pony. Because here's the thing, and I thought that this would be a nice little thematic interlude, which is considering the season, let us discuss White Christmas.
A white Christmas?
A white Christmas.
Time for a bit of Sinatra-ash.
No. Fascism.
Okay, great.
Because if we know one thing about the condition of post-modernity, it's that nothing stays out of fashion for very long. So, in 2017, we were all bumping Fila and UK Funky. And white supremacy, if it can ever be said to have gone out of style, made a roaring comeback. Because here's the thing, unfortunately, the collapse of neoliberalism, by and large, has not belonged to the left. In the case of Marine Le Pen and Norbert Hofer and Geert Wilders, the far-right's candidates in Europe were only defeated because the traditional parties of the centre, not in Macron's case admittedly, but the parties of the centre tacked hard to the right on issues of immigration, culture and national belonging. And just this week, Austria's Freedom Party have found ministerial roles governing defence and the interior and have been allowed to select their foreign minister. And I think the case of Austria is quite instructive because Chancellor Sebastian Kurz has shown that the real politic of even the pro-EU centre-right will always be more comfortable making a pact with fascists than empowering the anti-racist left in any way. But I know that you don't think that that's the entire story.
I think there's a lot more to it than elected politicians. There's even more to it than quite evidently white supremacist street movements, whether it's in Poland or whether it's the EDL or whether
Charlottesville.
It's Charlottesville. There's something bubbling underneath the surface, and it's interacting with, I think, new atheism, rational bros, all the way from Richard Dawkins to Sam Harris. And it culminates, I think, in quite degenerate ideas around race realism, white supremacy and so on, which dress themselves up as empirical. And these are online, and they're being viewed by large numbers of younger white males.
I mean, we've got a video for you on this return of scientific racism.
Yeah.
Can we show this?
Yeah.
Because that's a solvable problem. And people have been working on trying to solve the problem of racism, well, for hundreds of years. I mean, it is... I mean, I wouldn't say I give my left arm because I'm left-handed, but I would give a lot.
Lefty do.
I would give so much for it to just be racism. So if you look at criminality, right? I mean, as you know, black males are, young black males, 3 to 4% of the American population responsible for more than 50% of the homicides. You look at what goes on in the South Side Chicago. It's horrible. And yet, because that's a...
So this guy's called Stephen Molyneux. He was on a show called The Rubin Report. Now, The Rubin Report sort of pitches itself as rational, liberal, moderate, but invariably it is just deluged with people like Milo, people like Stephen Molyneux, right-wing wackos, fundamentally. And I think that the left is missing a trick here on new media, on places like Reddit, on YouTube. It's underneath the surface. And it's not necessarily on Twitter, on Facebook. It's not responsive to the news cycle. What they're trying to build is a broader common sense, even if it is with a minority of people, around race, around white superiority. And even if just 15% of the population agrees with those ideas, that's a problem politically, because if they are people that are historically quite privileged, white men, it's going to really fuck minorities, not just institutionally, but also within civil society informally. So I think the problem with the re-emergence of white supremacy, yes, it's institutional, yes, it's electoral, but also you're beginning to see the emergence of a new common sense around these ideas being popular, which is worrying.
And I think the worrying thing here is that what the far right have managed to rebuild, and it's been facilitated in a huge way through essentially media models that aren't too dissimilar from our own, right? In terms of self-publishing, in terms of utilising social media, is that the far right have rediscovered an international, or a sense of an international, in a way that the left hasn't, and I think that should be something of concern for us. But just so it's not all doom and gloom, I thought I'd share with you one of my favourite videos from 2017.
Go.
Can we roll it?
Neo-Nazis don't love me, they kind of hate me, actually.
KKK, neo-Nazis.
Those people don't like me.
Are you like the hipster version of the neo-Nazi movement?
It's Pepe's become kind of a...
I love that song.
So I'm wearing a blazer, okay? I'm trying to be like respectable. We talk about parliamentary politics. We'll interview Jeremy Corbyn, all that stuff. People like Richard Spencer need to have their nose broken. They need to have their teeth knocked out. The only language they understand is violence and intimidation. And I'm very happy to say that on the record. I'll say that on the fucking telly. I'll say it on the radio. I'll write it down in print in the newspapers if you want. You can't reason with these people. And actually the best tactic with Nazism, and Richard Spencer is a Nazi, is to intimidate them. You know, when he has his institute and they meet up and people shut the event down, that is the best thing to do. Yes, you need to debate with people who disagree with you, always. But this is not about disagreement. This man believes that white people are genetically superior to everybody else. Okay, so that's not something that can be falsified. Hence, it's not scientific, which means you can't argue him round.
What I will say is that you can also purchase a Punch Pepe pin. Proceeds go to support anti-fascist causes.
Very good.
And I've heard through a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, apparently the person who actually punched Richard Spencer has got one of these badges.
Incredible.
I mean, so, whoever it was, anonymous comrade who punched Richard Spencer, amazing. You're doing amazing, sweetie. But we do have a list of our top 5 comrades of 2017, do we not?
We do.
So, these are people who are not politicians, who we feel have in some way furthered the discourse. Aaron, if you want to kick off.
I'll kick off, right? So we've got let me get this up. Number 5, we've got Ed Sheeran.
What?
Ed Sheeran, let's get a picture of Ed Sheeran.
We didn't discuss this.
No, it's Ed Sheeran. It's Comrade Ed Sheeran. Did you know Ed Sheeran's a comrade now? I love his music. You know his music? I love his music. I always liked his music. Very catchy.
This is the difference between someone in their 20s and someone in their 30s. Number 5, we have Jamie Adenuga. JME. Thank you.
That isn't Ed Sheeran.
Thank fuck for that.
I mean, he's a lot better looking, right?
A lot better looking.
And a lot more talented.
You know he grew up in my ends?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Him and his family moved to Palmer's Green. They went to Winchmore School. I remember when Sirius came out, we were all very excited. The reason why Jamie is number 5 and not Ed Sheeran is that I feel that Grime for Corbyn stepped up when the political classes fell apart. And what they did was take on that role of political and civic education of the youth. And I think that's paid dividends in terms of an unusually high youth turnout.
Yeah. No, Grime for Corbyn was massive.
It will go higher. And I think what they've also done is show that you don't need a very lazy form of identity politics in order to see the interests of young, working class people of colour being reflected in the Labour Party policy. Jeremy Corbyn is probably, the oldest and whitest dude I've seen in a long time, but he's doing a damn good job of appealing to young people of colour.
Right.
Number 4, who've we got?
We've got Lily Madigan. Do you want to say something about Lily Madigan?
So, Lily
a late comer to the list.
A very, a new entry in the Novara Media Top Comrade charts. Lily Madigan is a 19-year-old Labour Party activist, I think based in Rochester. She's the women's officer, and she is spectacularly talented, a real asset to the movement. She, unfortunately, has come under a huge amount of fire from the right-wing gutter press, aided and abetted by even so-called voices of the left and radical feminists, because she's trans and said that a trans woman has no place in the movement, and we at Novara Media could not disagree more. She has held herself with grace, poise, a political intelligence that I don't have now at 25.
She's what, 18, 19?
19.
I mean, as a teenager, obviously nobody should ever be subjected to that, but at 19 and to respond like that is very commendable. So congratulations.
Top comrade.
I don't think anybody could have responded any better to that kind of nonsense, to be honest.
Would you like to introduce our 3rd top comrade?
We've got Big Nev.
Big Nev.
We've got Neville Southall. I must be honest, my first memories of Neville Southall were the 1995 FA Cup final for Everton. I think Graham Stewart scored the winning goal. Maybe it was Paul Rideout. I think it was Graham Stewart. And yeah, I just thought of him as kind of like a has-been goalkeeper playing for Wales and Everton. Turns out he fucking hates the Tories. And he just loves tweeting kind of weird woke haiku about skeletons. I don't quite get it, but I mean, it's kind of cool. And it's certainly unexpected.
Completely here for it. And you know what I really love about Neville Southall?
Go on.
Is that he is so willing to learn. And so he's been educating himself on trans issues, and he's learning what words like cisgender mean, and he's just incredibly open to new ideas, and I find myself incredibly charmed by this. May I introduce our 2nd top comrade of 2017?
Please do.
Again, another new entry is Tarana Burke. Now, you might not have heard the name Tarana Burke. Hopefully that's changed in the last couple of weeks, but you may not have heard her name. You've definitely heard of the movement that she started well over a decade ago. #MeToo. So while the #MeToo was popularised around the time of the Weinstein revelations, as many women in Hollywood came forward with their accounts of sexual harassment, abuse and violence, this phrase, Me Too, as a way of creating a sense of solidarity and sisterhood, actually stems from the activism done by Tarana Burke. She was working with young girls. This came from working at a youth camp where a girl who'd been intensely troubled, socially isolated and excluded later said, hang on, I was the victim of sexual abuse. And Tarana Burke said, why couldn't you just say Me Too? And so it was really kind of drawn from that kind of emotional moment, and it's found its rebirth. And I think it's really important to celebrate Tarana Burke as well as all those brave women who have come forward with their experiences of sexual violence. Because so far, and this is not to take away from their experiences at all, those women who've been most prominent have been very wealthy, they've been generally white, and that I think that's why they've been listened to in this way. Whereas actually what Tarana Burke's work shows is that those well-placed women are only able to reach that kind of cultural tipping point because of the years of largely unrecognised work done by women of colour in the community.
There was a Latino cleaner, and it was a French politician.
Oh, Dominique Strauss-Kahn.
Strauss-Kahn, that's right, when he was at the IMF previously.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know her name? I can't recall her name. And that shows you the difference, right, between very prominent, very powerful man, and obviously, if you look at the way that her allegations were responded to, and then these, different era, okay, fine, but also, like you say, different kinds of people are making the claims.
So, our top comrade.
Top comrade, who do you think it is?
I don't know.
Begins with a J.
Jeremy Corbyn?
Nope.
John McDonnell.
It was Ja Rule.
Ja Rule.
Ja Rule. This is the model, by the way, for the Navarra IRL event. Fire Festival.
It was beautiful. So, in case you guys have forgotten, because it's been a very wavy couple of weeks, at least for us.
Yeah, it has been, yeah. I mean, I didn't leave the house until today, since the Navarra Party.
Man's just been in his bedroom turning up to D&B on his ones. Yeah. But Ja Rule, who had organised, I think it was something like $10,000 or $12,000 a ticket, a luxury festival in the Caribbean. So all these very wealthy white American teens got flown out, expecting a 5-star festival experience, Instagram models all over the shop, Migos performing an exclusive set. What they found was disaster relief tents, some plasticky cheese sandwiches, passports got stolen, people started passing out, and at one point I think they were surrounded by feral wolves.
This is what a radical redistribution of wealth really looks like.
Comrade Ja Rule. And for anyone out there who doubts his dedication to the cause and says, well, look, he was just running a scam. One, I've said this for a long time, scamming is counter-hegemony. And two, can we pull up this tweet from Ja Rule?
Radical criminality. What's this?
Social media has ruined socialism.
Oh my God.
17th of October, 2017.
Is that actually real?
That is a real Ja Rule tweet.
What a fucking great guy. No wonder he's our Comrade of the Year.
Comrade Ja Rule. But we've got a list of non-politician comrades, and I think it's only fair that we also announce our top boy, 2017.
Top boy. Please,
so
do the honours.
There can only be one. We're talking about someone who has changed the face of politics in the UK.
Okay.
Who has spent the entirety of their career fighting for justice.
Okay.
Done it from the backbenches. Has now reached a position of prominence.
They're not in this room, are they?
Hello. Nope.
Okay. Go on, Karen. Sorry.
Diane Abbott.
Hey!
Diane Abbott is our top boy of 2017, and I just love that
picture.
photo of her from 1984. God. Beautiful, stunning. And I thought it was really important to signpost her contributions because over half of all abusive tweets sent during the general election were sent her way. An unbelievable amount of misogyny, of racism. It's something which has been compounded just this weekend with some fucking waste man in blackface at the darts. And yet, she's consistently been one of the Labour Party's strongest performers. Stronger often than I think than Jeremy Corbyn.
She's a class act. And she's very tough. And I don't, in politics you do have to be tough, but she's tougher than humanly imaginable for me personally.
And I think that when you look at the direction of politics generally, in terms of this intensely racist and hostile turn, which is basically saying to people of colour, and in particular black women, that they have no place in civic society, to see someone like Diane Abbott, with her years of experience, her commitment to anti-racism, reach that position of prominence and still stand by what she believes and what she's always stood for, I think is wonderfully nourishing. And
Trailblazer. You need these people. Hugely important, because without them, like you say, the many more, and there will be many more Diane Abbotts over the next couple of decades, they can't follow on that slipstream.
Phenomenal work.
Very phenomenal. Very important woman, human being. We commend you as the top boy of 2017, Diane.
Top boy 2017. Right. We are into the home straight.
We're going to wrap up in a bit. This is my favourite bit. I'm looking forward to this, actually. I mean, I've looked forward to the whole show, but this is great.
Novara Media's favourite moments.
Oh, my God.
The Fix Lit List.
The Lit List.
The Lit List. Let's go from our fifth littest moment of 2017.
This was great.
This is Lord Ashcroft being chased into a toilet.
Amazing.
About tax avoidance. Can we roll this video?
It was at Tory conference, right?
Sir, could I just have a quick word with you? Did you have tens of millions in an offshore trust that you secretly control, sir? Did that mean that you could avoid millions in tax through that trust? Lord Ashcroft, why don't you just talk to me? It'd be great to hear your view. It was the Punta Gorda Trust, Lord Ashcroft. Sir, the Punta Gorda Trust. Dear, is that your response? It was the Punta Gorda Trust, sir.
That was pretty funny, right? That was at Tory party conference, obviously tied into the Paradise Papers, all these British overseas territories, which we could stop dodging all these tens of billions of pounds worth of tax every year, tomorrow if we wanted to. Lord Ashcroft is at the centre of it. That was very funny.
You know what? That's the most I've ever related to Lord Ashcroft in my life.
Why?
I really empathised with him. Because you know when it's like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And it's the tail end of the pill and it's not the fun part anymore.
Yeah.
And you're pranging out and you just gotta go hide in the toilets.
I'm on the blower, mate. I'm getting more in.
Like, I've genuinely been in that position more times than I care to admit.
You know, by the way, Ashcroft owns Politics Home. So if you're ever reading something from Politics Home, Lord Ashcroft owns it. It's not a particularly serious thing to read. Just thought I'd mention that. Fourth best moment.
Littest moment.
It was at Labour Party conference. It was at the TWT Novara Media Party. It was Jeremy Corbyn with our very own Ash Sarkar saying the man's not hot.
So, mate, it's a bit warm in here. Do you not want to take off your jacket?
The man's not hot.
The thing goes and the boom.
Phenomenal.
The reason why I find it so funny is because he got it a bit wrong.
The man's not hot.
The man's not hot.
Hey, they've got 10,000 retweets. Do you know that?
I think it's one of our most successful pieces of content.
10,000 retweets.
So funny. But you know what made me really happy? Is that Michael Dapper, who is the comedian behind the character of Big Shaq, also just a wonderfully talented comic writer in his own right, is that he was really happy that Jeremy Corbyn had said, the man's not hot. And I was delighted to be a part of it. I think it was hilarious and funnier because he didn't get it quite right.
Third most lit moment of 2017?
Third most lit moment is actually one of your selections. I hadn't even seen it before today. It is Alistair Campbell looking like a crusty anarcho at the book fair.
Look, so on the right you've got Alistair Campbell, and on the left, no, I'm kidding. On the left is Alistair Campbell with his Fuck Brexit hoodie. This looks like Gary from Swindon, a prison abolitionist, at the London Anarchist Book Fair. You know, this was the guy who sold the Iraq invasion to the British public, and now he looks like somebody that works at Freedom Bookstore.
No, he looks like somebody's
amazing.
got like 2 dogs.
It's
like
amazing.
one called like Rosa and one called like Alexandra. You know what I mean? It's like thinking about 2017 as the year of everything going topsy-turvy, that included aesthetics. We've got Aaron Bastani wearing blazers on the regular. I miss V-neck Bastani.
I mean, I've just recovered from the flu, so... well, I haven't actually even recovered, to be quite honest. Pretty fucking... Everybody probably fucked up their Christmas, but, you know...
Bring back the V-neck 2K18.
I'll try, but nothing betokens the cries to the British state than Alistair Campbell looking like somebody who has a stall at the Anarchist Book Fair.
So,
yeah.
Second littest moment of 2017 even.
Well, it has to be, for me, the response of Stephen Kinnock to the summer that was BBC documentary, Surprise Surge of the Labour Party. Let's have a look at that.
Oh, we don't have it.
Oh, no! The funniest one of the lot.
Oh, wasn't it just him looking completely horrified?
Yeah.
Like, as the exit poll came in.
And then also his wife, the former Danish Prime Minister, and she was like, don't talk about stuff. He was like, oh, maybe I should. Hey, actually, no, there is a link from the Independent newspaper, and it's taking the piss out of them. And it says, what if the centrists are all complete fucking idiots? And it compares him to, who was that scrum half for England? Matt Dawson. He just thinks he's a bit of a legend. And that's probably not enough to be the leader of the party.
I love how you think that rugby will be a relatable reference for me.
Well, I mean, you know, they do kind of look a bit similar, and they're both posh lads. Anyway.
I understand football, I understand boxing, but our litest of the lit moments
Number 1
of 2017.
Top notch, can't be topped. What is it?
Exit polls, baby.
Fucking hell!
Yeah! Let's go fucking mental!
JC! Oh, mate! Oh my god, I put Jeremy in.
Mate, oh my god. It could be wrong, but it's fucking wrong. It could be 20 out, fine. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Fucking hell.
Amazing.
I worried about you in that clip because you're not as young as you once were. You looked like you was going to have a heart attack, babe.
No, it was I mean, I was on a high. I felt like I'd taken MDMA for like a week after that. No, I had. And then you realise, you think, oh, like all these drugs that people take, they're effectively, you know, they're imitating neurotransmitters that our brains produce when we're in, you know,
a state of ecstasy.
A state of ecstasy, quite literally. And that was what that was. That was pure, unadulterated ecstasy.
I mean, we talked about how I got politics wrong in 2017. Although I would say, be fair to me, I tend to be correct in the arc of history.
Right, that's absolutely true, yeah.
Very wrong in elections. But you, from the start, had called pretty much every election or referendum since I've known you.
No, that's not true.
What did you get wrong?
Although I wanted to vote Leave in Brexit referendum. I thought it was going to be very close. What we do is, because we hang around with journalists, we bandwagon. Now, I would have, if I'd trusted my instincts, I would have backed Brexit. And I got the 2015 election wrong. So I got those 2 wrong.
All right, okay, two out of the time that I've known you. But...
And I said Trump was going to win, and James talked me out of that. And that's on the week, and that's on the Navarro FM the week before the US election, because the polling was showing 60-40 Hillary Clinton winning, right? So it's the way people 100 to 1 is still a fucking lot for a guy who's a complete maniac to be the president.
Because they read a statistic like 60-40 and they think 60%.
Exactly right. It was
like they literally just...
It was a category error, precisely, yeah.
Like misread the data. But I remember seeing you the day after the result. We met in that pub in Canonbury, I think it was. Like, neither of us having slept. And I grabbed Aaron by the face and was like, it is your delusion that brought us here. And I still feel that to be true. So, Nostradamus, Bastano, lay it on me.
What's going to happen?
2018, give some predictions.
I mean, the thing is now with politics, you can't make predictions. So that means that we on the left, with this particular moment with Jeremy Corbyn, with the Labour Party, with pushing things even further left, both within and beyond parliamentary politics, you have to take this opportunity. So the first 6 months of next year are crucial, and we can't just presume anything is going to happen. My view is an election's highly possible next year, but not probable. So I'd say like 40% chance. Again, that's quite a good chance though. And if you get a Labour majority government with radical social movements underneath it, we need to be prepared, and we're certainly not prepared at the moment. So I would say, don't make presumptions. Things are going to get even more hairy. I think Trump will be surprisingly successful in the US. I think at the moment, to me, he looks like he's going to be re-elected. I did say that The Rock would run for the Democratic nomination in 2024. And I do think that the one certainty we can take from politics now is that the fusion between celebrity and electoral politics will only become greater and greater. That'll be particularly evident in the US context because of the primary system, but it'll also be the case here. So my big prediction, I think, of 2018 is more celebs in politics.
More celebs in politics.
For better or for worse.
So I think we should wrap up there.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for watching and for tuning in all year. We will be doing another end of year wrap up. It will be with Comrade James Butler.
Are you going to be joining us?
I will be.
Oh, great.
So it will be, all four of us will be Aaron Bastani, James Butler, myself and Michael Walker, Novara FM, Resonance 104.4 at 1 p.m, as always. I'm not teaching this week, which means I finally get to come back on FM.
Amazing. And can I say one more thing?
What?
We're in this studio, we've got all this great kit. We've had a great year as individuals, as an organisation, as a movement on the left. But we have to disseminate and diffuse the ideas of socialism to millions of people. Because if we don't do that, then the far right will. So what I would say is if you're watching this and you want to help Novara, go to support.novaramedia.com, help give us some cash, a one-off donation, a subscription. If you don't want to give it to us, give it to somebody else. Because we now really in 2018 need to start resourcing these organisations, like I say, to help diffuse these ideas. Millions of people now need to comprehend the scale of the crisis at hand and the solutions that we want to offer them.
And also, if you don't have a fiver, that's fine. A tweet is free.
A tweet is free.
A tweet is free, so share and share alike. Thank you so much. We've had a wonderful year and we couldn't have done any of it without you guys. So we'll catch you on Friday. After Friday, we will catch you in 2018, looking bleary-eyed, hungover, with an absolutely rags come down. I can't wait. Bye.
Happy New Year.